Thousands of migrants are fleeing South Africa ahead of a self-declared deadline set not by authorities, but by vigilante groups demanding undocumented foreigners leave the country by June the 30th. Anti-immigration protests are planned nationwide on Tuesday, raising fears of violence. South African police say that they will not tolerate attacks or property damage, but tension remains high, as DW's Dianne Hawker reports.
No, I'll never come back again here. I can't say this country is very bad, no. But the situation which is happening now, it causes me to say I can't come back again. Okay, all right.
James Mackey is one of hundreds of Malawian citizens trying to get back home. He's camped outside the Malawi consulate in Johannesburg, hoping that his country's government will repatriate him and others. Anti-immigration groups like March and Operation Dudula have planned a mass mobilization against illegal migration for Tuesday, 30 June, coupled with a call for undocumented foreigners to leave the country. The group's leaders have said the protests will be peaceful.
So if there's anyone that must shoulder any blame for the 30th, it's the government. But on our part, we are saying, for what we can take and what we can do to ensure that no violence ensures, we'll do that.
But Mackey is not convinced. In the last 2 months, 2 demonstrations ended in violent clashes. 4 people were killed, including 2 Mozambicans, 1 Malawian and 1 South African. Mackey says he has also received direct threats.
There is also, the situation is not good. Why I'm saying it's not good, there we are staying with the people who are also the citizens of this country. So they say to us, all foreigners, if we are still living here, they've got rights to do whatever they can manage to do to us, especially to kill or maybe to get injured.
The government says 15,000 Malawians have been processed for deportation, primarily in Durban, and those without appropriate documents will need to be issued emergency travel documents and could be banned from travel into South Africa for 5 years. This will be the case for Hawa Hassan, who admits entering South Africa without a passport.
Passport you didn't manage, so what do you mean by that? Do you have one or you don't have?
I don't have.
So how did you come here?
I come here through bus.
With the bus?
Yeah.
And then nobody asked you about passport or anything?
But I don't know what is happening because I was taken by bus and moving. So my driver, the one who sorted out about that.
South Africa's government says it is aware of the country's migration challenges and has set up an interministerial committee to deal with the issue. It has called on citizens to avoid taking the law into their own hands.
Someone who violates a law or who is alleged to have violated a law, whether it is someone who is accused of theft, whether it is someone who is accused of illegally entering a country, they do not void or lose their inherent human dignity and human rights. That is why we don't have vigilante justice in South Africa. We have due process in this country. And it applies to any kind of legal violation.
The police say they want to avoid a repeat of the unrest seen in 2021, when protests over the arrest of former President Jacob Zuma turned to looting and chaos. South Africa's police service has set aside the equivalent of 32 million euros to monitor the planned protests. It has also partnered with private security firms who will supply helicopters, additional cars and manpower.
And DW correspondent Dianne Hawker filed that report. Given the violence in recent weeks, I asked her how much confidence there is that this deadline can pass without further unrest.
Well, we've heard recently both from the anti-immigrant protest leaders and from the police, and from both sides, they're giving assurances that it will be a normal day in South Africa. However, I think that there is still quite a lot of apprehension from certain sectors of society, not only because of some of the violence that we've seen in the past few weeks. There have been incidents, for example, along with some of these protests, where some of the marchers would confront immigrants and ask them about their documentation, in some cases even going into shops and demanding to know whether the workers are local or immigrants. And I think that that has placed a lot of concern amongst the immigrants in South Africa. And also there is important background from previous incidents where there was xenophobic violence in 2008, 2015, 2017 and 2019, where there have been these periodic flare-ups which in some instances resulted in people being injured or killed. And that is, I think, why there is this feeling of concern. However, the police does say that it's learned from its South Africa's past, including the 2021 July unrest, where we saw lots of widespread protests. And they say that they're putting a lot of boots on the ground proactively, which we didn't see in 2021, to try and make sure that nothing untoward happens.
And South African authorities, for their part, they say that they are prepared to prevent violence. Can you just, expand a bit on what you said and walk us through how visible the security response is on the ground right now?
Well, the security response that we've seen is across the different provinces, particularly in hotspots. The police have been holding what they call parades to kind of show the number of police that they have or will have on the ground. We also know that there's some police officers whose leave or vacation time was cancelled, and they were asked to return for being involved in the operations relating to these protests. They've reached out to the private security industry, and for our viewers who don't know, South Africa has quite a large private security industry. And it's also quite well funded because it's privately funded. So from the private security industry, they're expecting to get, additional vehicles, helicopters, and other kind of monitoring assistance through the kind of programs that the private security have. So far, we have seen some police patrolling in areas like Rosettenville, and also they're still carrying on doing the work of what they call crackdown on illegal immigration in some areas, like in Durban, going to different shops, and along with labour inspectors and Department of Home Affairs staff, checking the immigration status of some of the people there.
The government says that it recognizes the migration challenges, but also warns against vigilante justice. How difficult has it been for officials to strike that balance right now?
I think it's been a very tough balance to strike because the government has had to take quite a lot of responsibility for some of the challenges that we're now seeing in relation to immigration. Just to give you an example, the Department of Home Affairs has said that they only have 820 immigration inspectors, around about that number. So about 800 immigration inspectors inside the country. It's a country of millions of people, that is citizens, plus other people who are immigrants within the country. So the number doesn't really correlate with how many people are actually in South Africa. And they've admitted that they really need to do more work when it comes to resources. There's also seemed to be quite a lag in ensuring that the technology is up to scratch. Some of the land borders, for example, don't have, as much biometrics as we see at South Africa's airports. And that's why it's difficult sometimes to track who's come into the country via those borders for follow-ups. And we also have quite a long border, which is actually a river. Part of the border is a river. And it's known that some people cross the Limpopo River to come into South Africa. The Department of Home Affairs has now started using drones to patrol that area, but it is still a soft spot in South Africa's border defense, which is often used by people wanting to come into the country without documentation.
Dianne Hawker, Kalubi, thank you. And DW correspondent Privilege Musvanhiri is in Brightbridge, Zimbabwe, at the border with South Africa. He told me what he is seeing there as migrants are leaving South Africa.
Quite a trickle of people who are coming from the South African side of the border coming to Zimbabwe. Earlier in the day, there were quite a number of other nationalities from the region, Malawi, Tanzania, and Zambia, who were transiting through Zimbabwe. Some of them came from South Africa and have spent more than 3 days to a week on the road. This is a group of people who have been trying to get out of South Africa on their own funds and trying to repatriate themselves. But then they are hitting a wall when they then cross into Zimbabwe, because what then happens is that they are failing now to get transport to go onwards. In Zimbabwe, of course, transporters are saying they want to transport them from the border here at Beit Bridge to pass through to Zimbabwe, maybe to get to the other borders for Malawi, for Zambia, and so on. But then the problem is the transporters here in Zimbabwe, some of them are being charged by authorities here to say that if you transport these people, it's equivalent to human trafficking. So these people are now spending nights, maybe 3 or 4 days, waiting for transport to take them from the border here into Zimbabwe as they tried to transit. As we speak right now, across the border in the distance in South Africa, we are hearing that there is a very long queue of people who are trying to get processed on the South African side to cross to Zimbabwe ahead of the 30th of June, the deadline that was given by the anti-migrant groups in South Africa.
Can you tell us a little bit more about many of those returning? They have spent years working in South Africa. What are some of the personal stories that you're hearing about why they decided to leave now?
You hear of sad stories, you hear of grueling experiences, and some of them have decided to leave South Africa out of fear and for their own safety. Because whenever they hear about marches, about foreigners being called to leave the country, like what happened in the past, they are fearing that come the 30th of June, nobody knows how things are going to pan out. And some of these people, they will tell you that they have stayed in South Africa for quite a long time. Some of them had established their lives there. Some were gainfully employed. Some had papers to stay in South Africa. But out of the fear of their own safety, they are now deciding to leave because of the threats that they've received ahead of 30th of June. And if you look at some of the people that we've met here in Beit Bridge, they only managed to put together a few goods that they can carry to them, belongings that they can carry with them to back home to their own countries.
How prepared are Zimbabwean and other regional authorities to receive people coming back at short notice?
I guess this is one dilemma that is also coming on the shores of countries like Zimbabwe, Malawi, and other citizens that were staying in South Africa. Like, for example, if you look at Zimbabwe, of course, there are talks of reintegrating the people. There are talks of plans to make sure that people start again their lives. But then in terms of the tangible support that they are getting, we are yet to see these things being put to practice. We went to one of the reception centers where Zimbabweans are being processed, those that are coming from South Africa. When they reach to this center, they are being processed. Then you are grouped into different groups where you are then given transport to where you are going. But we didn't get the sense of what exactly the kind of support these people are going to get, because some of these people have children that were going to school in South Africa. So now they are coming back. It is schools are still open in Zimbabwe. It's school term. Whether they are going to go back into school, no one knows at the moment.
Privilege Musvanhiri, thank you so much.